the dispatch, the report from Inca Garcilaso de la Vega. Garcilaso de la Vega is the name of the Spanish poet we have taken a look at. And here we have a distant relative of his. A relative of the poet's had gone over to the New World and had a child, beget a child with a princess of the Incas. Again, very sophisticated civilization. And this child grew up in the New World, in the Incan civilization as it was essentially dying off in the in Peru. And he went back to Spain, or he went to Spain, his first visit, when he was a young man, like 21 or so. He had been educated privately at home for most of that, and he went back and he set himself up in Spain as a kind of aristocrat, because he had this noble bearing on both sides, essentially. But he was also a bit of an oddity. He was also a bit of an exotic, because he was, in his own words, a mestizo, which he tells us is essentially a half-breed. Half European Spanish, half Peruvian native. And he writes this enormous book, actually a couple of them, about the character of his homeland. And it's on one hand, it's a defense of what he has grown up with, and saying, hey, my people are worth something, my homeland is worth something. And he creates an encyclopedia, and it stretches more than like 1,000 pages, quite frankly, in its printed form, an encyclopedia of his homeland, where he talks about different aspects of the culture. So we have another of these ethnographic efforts where he is paying attention to human civilization, human culture, human achievements, and recording them so that other people can learn from them. That is a basic academic pursuit. But he's also doing it as an advocate, saying, my people are not savages. My people deserve some respect. My civilization back home is rich, and I am of both worlds. He says right at the beginning that he creates a predicate for why he should be allowed to advocate for these things by saying, I have a fuller and more accurate information than that is provided by previous writers. He's writing fairly late in the 1500s, when people since Columbus, 3/4 of a century or so earlier, had been reporting back, going over to the New World and reporting back as Europeans, saying, you won't believe what we saw there. And some of those people had gone to the New World, and some of them did not. And it was a hot topic for quite a long time of, gee, what's going on in that exotic New World over there, where the streets are paved with gold? Is it really a new Eden? Is it really just, filled with all of these people who are like Adam and Eve, and all of this? How do they live? All that. So he is saying, a lot of those people are coming back and telling you fairy stories. Stories of monsters and dragons and magic that's happening over on the other side of the world, and is completely fabricated. Stories of streets paved with gold. Stories of exotic people who are barely human. All of this, he's saying, is BS. You've all been schnookered, because it's a best-selling topic. But I actually know. I can report with authority, and not just of a European coming over there and taking note of things, but as somebody who has grown up in the culture, who shares that culture, who can tell you what it really means. Always that idea of luring people into a new thing. Inca Garcilaso de la Vega, which is not his real name, but Inca Garcilaso de la Vega, as he goes by, to advertise those two aspects of his personality, the noble Spaniard and the Incan, the Incan native. He knows that he can get people to read something that is exotic. And he has exotic to spare. So he can sell that. He is not writing just a report for the king and queen. His audience is more than two people. He is writing for popular support. Here we see that capitalist economy taking hold, where a writer can make a nice living writing for the population. Gutenberg's printing press is also like 3/4 of a century old at this point. There are books everywhere. People are hungry for things to read. So he is producing a remarkable amount of text for people to buy and read. And so he is appealing to the masses, to a mass audience, and not just that particular audience of the royal court. And that's very important to bear in mind. So he can talk about things much more generally. He's talking to educate people, to entertain people, not to get them to send him money so that he can go back over there and conquer more. He's doing it for very different purposes. Some self-interested, to make money for himself. He's fairly comfortable with family money to begin with, but also some self-interest in trying to elevate his own station, to make his own case and say, I am not an animal, and make the case for the dignity of his people. That doesn't mean that everything about him is necessarily coming off as particularly sweetness and light. You can see a lot of his own prejudices built in, and he does make certain specific references to his own Catholic faith to align himself from the beginning with his very Catholic readers in Spain, be of service to Christendom, and to inspire gratitude in our Lord Jesus Christ and the Virgin Mary, his mother, by whose merits and intercession the Eternal Majesty has deigned to draw so many great people out of the pit of idolatry and bring them into the bosom of his Roman Catholic Church. He is waving the flag. I am not all Incan. I am not all a native of South America. I am a Spaniard like you. You can trust me because we are the same. We are all Catholics here. So he's waving those two flags. And you can see other prejudices work in as well. When he starts talking about slavery, that gets a little uncomfortable for modern audiences. Towards the end of our excerpt, he says, we are forgetting the best imports to the Indies, namely the Spaniards and the Negroes, who have since been taken there as slaves. So there he's setting up some distinctions. He's saying the best imports into their country, well, Spain arriving, it was just fantastic for us. I don't really believe that, but, okay, sure. But also, he specifies also the Negroes, the slaves, the imported African slaves that are coming and helping to clear land and do all of the work that that reforming and conquering a nation necessitates. He's calling that out and saying, damn, that's good. Thank God we've got some slaves here. These two races have mingled with the Indians in various ways to form others which are distinguished by their use of different names. And then he clicks through the vocabulary list of all of these little racial distinctions, all of these little, frankly, boldly racist distinctions. And some of them he goes through: mulatto and criollos, all of these sort of uncomfortable racist little epithets, essentially, for what the people on the ground in Peru call one another, or call people who are a little different. This is a little bit uncomfortable to hear, because he's just reporting, well, this is what, yeah, we're all racist and we all say this. But he does wind the conversation around to something a little bit more personal. When he says, the children of Spanish by Indians are called mestizos, meaning that we are a mixture of the two races. The word was applied by the first Spaniards who had children by Indian women, and because it was used by our fathers as well as on account of its meaning, I call myself by it in public and am proud of it. Though in the Indies, if a person is told you're a mestizo or he's a mestizo, it is taken as an insult. He is a mestizo. He is of this mixed parentage of a Incan mom and a Spanish dad. And there is some ownership of that term that is going on here that is almost defiant. And you can say that, well, he winds through all the others first and then he gets down to his own. Is that because he's trying to hide the fact that he is this mix, or he says he's proud of it? Is he building up to the defiant claim that, and I am a mestizo, and it's a fine term, and thus excusing all the other terms before it? I don't know. I'd say the character of the man is slipping out into his reporting, that in a way that is very interesting for how that culture is dealing with the integration of new peoples and the intermarriage of these peoples, and how they view it. Not just, how modern people would view it, but how those people at the time are accommodating these new these new identities, these new forms of identity, and what their reaction to it is at first. The world is getting very complicated at this point, and they are all moving around so much more that you can't be isolated. No tribe is an island anymore. New groups come into contact, and how do you deal with that? Do you stick to your native allegiance and just always treat those others as others? But when there is some intermarriage and some children and stuff like that, then, well, how do you do that? How do you, those people are no longer all others, they're kind of part of us, and how do we treat with that? And this is a problem that obviously has bedeviled humankind for quite some time now. And to see it working out in a very elemental way in this neat little laboratory of Peru in the mid to late 1500s is, I think, very instructive, very significant, because it allows us reading it as a popular audience, as a readership today in the modern contemporary world, but also for readers contemporary to the time in the Renaissance. It allows us to reflect on how we deal with different races, different groups, different social and sociological developments in our cultures. And that is the Renaissance motivation, that we reflect on the developments of human civilization and study them so that we can think about how we can perhaps improve our own lives, our own selves, our own civilizations, and learn from others' mistakes or experiences. That is the Renaissance impulse in action in the age of exploration.